From the earliest days of my childhood, video games and the hidden mysteries and cut content within them have always been my favorite when taking time to analyze any given game. I am fascinated by the development of video games and how much content could have been added to them within developer builds and code in the game that suggest differences from what is shown on the release build of the game itself, and is a main reason why I delve into mysterious changes and differences within the videos on this channel. Sometimes the changes to the overall game is exceptionally good. However, other changes leave some wondering what could have been had the developers been given more time, a more advanced console, or maybe a better development environment. However, whether or not the changes made compared to the final build were positive or negative, it is unequivocally interesting to discover and explore the mysteries behind the developers' thought processes when creating builds of games, and the idea of cut content has always been extremely admirable to me. So it should come to no surprise that when the pre-alpha footage of some of the Black Ops 2 maps released just this Christmas, I was absolutely encapsulated about what could have been for certain builds that are shown. It is safe to say that all of this footage has completely blown me away and made me reconsider games and how they are truly developed. And while looking at all the footage, I discovered so much about what the game could have been. But with that said, from new areas of maps that were not once accessible, new wonder weapons, and completely new DLCs in general, ladies and gentlemen, this is the strange world of pre-alpha Call of Duty Zombies. Before I begin discussing any of the maps that we have received pre-alpha footage for, I would immediately like to give credit to both JuggerV2 and Riley541 on YouTube for providing all of the footage present in this video. All credit to pretty much all of the pre-alpha gameplay shown in this video will go to them, and if you have not already, please go follow both, as this video would not be possible without the footage provided by them. One last big thank you to both JuggerV2 and Riley541, but with that, let's start the delve into Call of Duty Zombies' most mysterious pre-alpha yet. To start it off, I only find it appropriate to look into the map that you most likely clicked on this video to see, Origins. Oh, excuse me, Le Tombeau? That's right, before even spawning into the map, one of the glaring differences I saw in the footage was the fact that Origins was originally called Le Tombeau, which is French for the tomb, which is a much more darker approach to the more epic and cinematic name Origins represents. Upon starting the map, an even crazier event plays, which of course is the intro cutscene that we all know and love that introduces us to the Primus characters in cinematic fashion. However, the pre-alpha version of this cutscene is a much more watered down version compared to what we see in the final build of this game, using the Ultimus cast as the models of all members of Primus, which was admittedly a very unsettling sight the first time I saw it. All of the movement in the cutscene itself is extremely janky and awkward, which of course is expected from a pre-alpha build, and upon reaching Richthofen near the culmination of the cutscene, we see that Maxis has been replaced by Sal De Luca from Mob of the Dead, which, while strange initially, is a aspect of this development I will return to shortly. The giant robots we all know and love are replaced by seemingly more simple designs that look more like giant robot toys compared to intimidating giant mechs. After the ending of the cutscene that we are all familiar with, one of the most glaring features that is different with this build is the use of the Mob of the Dead cast instead of either Primus or even Ultimus. Now this is significant, as this essentially proves that there were two teams working on different maps at the same time, and let me explain. Following the release of Die Rise in 2013, Jimmy Zielinski, head Zombies developer at the time, had essentially failed the Zombies community due to the negative reception received by both maps at the launch of the game. However, with the development of Mob of the Dead a couple months later by a new developer, Jason Blundell, community sentiment surrounding the game began to change significantly. After Mob of the Dead came Buried, which was a Victus map similar to both Die Rise and Transit, which many speculated to be created by Jimmy Zielinski, and following this release came to what we know as now Origins. However, with the inclusion of the Mob of the Dead cast within the Origins pre-alpha, this nothing but confirms the existence of two development teams after the release of Mob of the Dead, with Jimmy Zielinski and his team conducting conducting the Buried project, and Jason developing Origins. Anyways, the main layout of Origins essentially remains the same with less sharpened graphics, as we still maneuver through the trenches and power on the generators, which contain a green liquid instead of the blue element 115 we see in the final release. One of the main things that I noticed that I don't see a lot of people talking about audibly was the sound of planes flying overhead constantly, which is still an aspect of the Origins we see today. However, in this build it was much more noticeable and honestly put me a little on edge when I was watching the gameplay, as while it was annoying, it was immersive and felt like a genuine World War I battlefield. Additionally, the Panzer Soldat, which is set to spawn in at the infamous round 8 in the regular Origins release, actually spawns in at round 6, which just adds to the chaos and genuinely would be horrifying to have to deal with while playing. But the biggest difference hands down in the final build of this Origins release is the church area past the mound. What is just a simple church in the final release of Origins was once a humongous village that expanded to large portions of the map and is arguably one of the coolest cut features of the map. This village contained a multitude of buildings that actually did eventually lead to a church, which was home to the tank as seen in the final build, but Treyarch must have cut this portion for either console limitations or difficulty reasons, as Juggernog was actually placed in this village area and would have been much more harder to access compared to its spot in the final build of Origins. I find it all extremely fascinating, as the village portion of the map encapsulates that World War I vibe perfectly, and while I believe it would have made Origins a lot more difficult compared to what it already is, I believe it would have been so interesting to see this map with the village. The last main thing about Origins that should be looked at is the staffs. The staffs and parts were still obtained like how they are in the final build of Origins, however each staff looks extremely different and looks completely goofy in all honesty. Each one just looks like some sort of wizard wand from a kid's show or something, and I just find it really funny how this turned into what we got in the final build of Origins. However, that is essentially all of the noteworthy stuff found within the pre-alpha of Origins. It is a really interesting build that maintains elements of Origins we all know and love, while also incorporating new aspects we have never even seen before. It genuinely blew my mind learning about some of this stuff, but let's take a look at another Black Ops 2 map that has some pre-alpha footage. Buried. Buried was the most recent of the pre-alpha footages to be released to the public at the time of making this video, and it is safe to say that it was extremely interesting to discover what it held in store for us. Right off the bat, the spawn room of Buried looks extremely different. While the layout of the room itself is generally the same, the exterior of the map is extremely bland and definitely does not have the same level of detail as it does in the final build. According to those who were able to obtain gameplay of this, the map itself was extremely dark, and they had to place lighting around the map in order to get the details of what Treyarch was attempting to capture within the map itself. Going down the mining hole and diving into the map itself, the most glaring difference is the clear pathway that was once blocked with debris that leads to the mansion. It is extremely weird seeing a straight path towards the mansion without the barricade in the way, and it is safe to say that the map has changed significantly compared to its final release. The buildings all have their respective perks outside of them, except Juggernog and Double Tap, which is interesting as small things such as the placement of quick revives suggest that it would have been in the place of where Vulture's Aid is in the final release of the map. The mansion additionally had more pathways to access a multitude of other areas, however the gameplay footage does not provide as much information as some of the previous builds, and I am sure we will be given much more as time goes on. However, screenshots provided by Ducky Shocks of Nixes on CallOfDutyZombies.com show much more of what was meant to be for Buried. Elements such as the early time bomb are showed in these images, which can show the amount of time it took to develop such a small fraction of the map itself. One of my favorite screenshots of the entire album is that of what seems to be Leroy in the map, which is extremely unnerving as he is no longer the big friendly giant we all know and love, but is instead a giant zombie. However, more images just simply show the early stages of the development of certain buildings, and while they are somewhat interesting, I find that it really isn't worth covering as it is just lower quality models of things we already see in the final release. Something that I noticed about the pre-alpha footage for not only Buried but Origins as well is the extremely uncanny and weird feeling of looking at these pre-alpha builds. They feel empty. And while yes, that makes sense because the map hasn't been built up, the maps themselves feel very unnerving. Buried especially represents this ideology. I don't know how to explain it, but the lighting and just overall layout of the map has me extremely on edge and is one of the reasons why I love looking back at these pre-alpha builds. However, with that, let's move on to one of the most important information drops we have ever received in the modern zombies era. One of the biggest Call of Duty Zombies rumors prior to the release of the footage in December was that Black Ops 2 Zombies was supposed to have a DLC 5 that featured all of the World at War maps but was cut due to unknown reasons. However, what nobody saw coming was the news that the World at War maps would be remastered. However, they would additionally be alongside some of the maps seen in Black Ops 1 as well. The footage we see from the collection shows evidence of Kino der Toten, Ascension 5, and even Moon being in development before the ultimate shutdown of the project completely for unknown reasons. Each build of all of the maps essentially directly ports the maps from Black Ops 1 with only changes to the weapon selection and maps, including strangely wonder weapons as well. For example, Varrock sees the player being able to achieve the Winter's Howl and Jet Gun from the box, which is such a strange combination of wonder weapons that I guarantee nobody saw coming. The only main difference between the maps is that the maps set in Germany with the symbol, such as Kino der Toten and Varrock, have purple boxes that say delete me, which is kind of what is seen with Zombies Chronicles and Black Ops 3, as the symbols did indeed get a change. As of writing the script for this video, both Shangri-La and Call of the Dead are absent from any footage, and if I were to guess, Call of the Dead was not included due to its character cast. However, the absence of Shangri-La is admittedly extremely strange. However, with that said, that is essentially all that is present within the builds themselves. It is extremely weird seeing the Black Ops 2 HUD and weapons being overlaid onto the maps themselves, and it makes me wonder what zombies would be like had this actually released. Would we get Zombies Chronicles in Black Ops 3? Would the zombies community ever prosper as much as it did in Black Ops 3? Who knows, but in my opinion, I am ultimately glad this DLC never existed, as the Black Ops 2 system does not fit nearly as well onto the maps as both Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 3's versions did, and Zombies Chronicles may not have existed had it released. The world of pre-alpha Call of Duty Zombies is one of the craziest rabbit holes I have ever gone down, and seeing all of the changes made from maps has made me respect developers and the thought process they go through when constructing maps. I love delving into what could have been, and with Call of Duty Zombies, I am extremely excited to see if there is anything yet to be revealed from the community in the coming days or weeks. Mysteries and myths have been a fascination I have had, and I hope that some of that energy could be conveyed to you in this video. But with all that said, I appreciate you guys for sticking around. I know I was late to this, but thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.